It was probably in the 1960s, after Vatican II, that this feast day was placed here the day after we celebrate the two great martyrs of Rome, Peter and Paul. It was appropriate that we look at Peter and Paul as leadership roles in the martyrdom, but there were martyrs before Peter and Paul and certainly after Peter and Paul. People who die for the faith, the word martyr means witness. So people who live and die for their faith are called martyrs. Just yesterday we received a report of another martyrdom in Uganda. A church choir loft before Mass had started was blown up and 2 people were killed. So martyrdom has not ended with the first martyrs of Rome. We give them special recognition because it was almost like a state plan. It wasn't consistent, but from 64 well into the 300s, martyrdom rose in popularity and declined. Now, why was a person martyred? Well, usually it was a political issue. Religion and politics always come in conflict. And sometimes the Christians refused to obey or adore the emperor, who was regarded by the Romans as a god. They knew that that would be offensive to Jesus, so they refused to obey, as would be the Roman standard. They gathered in secret, which made them suspect. When I was growing up in Jersey City, there was a black church on my block, and to tell you the truth, all the years I lived there and even returned there after I was ordained, I never went in. I regret that now because I'm so interested in other cultures and other religions that I would have probably enjoyed it. I know they enjoyed celebrating because whenever you passed there on a Sunday, first of all the men and women went there dressed to the hilt, hats, suits, really dressed up. And once they were there, they were singing up a storm and praising God. And I always wondered, because here we are at that point on the border of Latin masses and, introducing the English Mass, and we barely started learning what we were worshiping. And they were hipping and hollering like wild. But it was in private. Although it was a public place, they were in private. So I understand the fact of being an outsider when Christians are inside worshiping and we're not allowed in. I wasn't allowed, I just didn't go in. It wasn't our style, it wasn't our place of worship. It didn't make them suspect, but it certainly is an indication of how outsiders and insiders can interact, sometimes in a negative way, in a way that makes it strange for us to go into a private ceremony. Now I've been to religious experiences all over the world and all different religions, Hindu, Muslim, all of it. But then, no. So that was a problem for the Romans. This group of secret followers of the Christus, they weren't called Christians yet, that happens later on in Antioch, and they met together, and you know what, you and I know the difference, but they were accused of eating the body and blood of this Christus. Well, we do, but it's not cannibalism. So they were accused of being cannibals in their little secret ceremonies. So you can see how the Romans said that these followers of the Christus are really weird. Now, had they been evangelized and taught what a sacrament was and what the gathering and how important a gathering at a church is, it would have been different. Well, it's different in the 20th century, it's different in all the centuries since then, but yet Christians, Roman Catholics especially, are still being martyred all over the world. And A lot of martyrdoms are happening in African countries. We know that, and Uganda is one example. And it's not because they're meeting in secret. It's not because they're cannibals. It's because they're different. That's us. And in the early church, when one Roman person was writing to the emperor, his Tacitus, he was writing to Pliny, and he wrote to him and said, I want to give you a rundown of what's going on in Rome with these followers of the Christus. He says, one characteristic is they're really weird. They love one another. Now that's something that it's great to be accused of that they loved one another. The early Christians, more than we do, and some fundamentalist groups still refer to each other as brother and sister in the Christian community. And that's, it's a tradition that more fundamentalists have kept than we have kept. But yet we are brothers and sisters. Our concern for one another should be a family concern. Today we're praying for the repose of the soul of Elizabeth, who is in heaven. And that should not be unusual for the Christian, to think of each other, whether here on earth or deceased, as being part of the family. And I'm sure all of you have a tradition, I do, definitely, of remembering my parents and my sister and my brother at Mass. And that's not unusual for the Christian. That's appropriate for the Christian. But the love that goes beyond that, out of the physical families, is also appropriate. For us to take care of the poor through all the means that we have at our disposal, whether it's Catholic Charities or Caritas, and there's so many, even in our own parish. And it's easy to write a check or put a donation in a basket, but as an example of loving one another, that's a challenge. That we're giving donations to people we don't even know that we call our brothers and sisters. Now, that's witnessing too. See, what we do as a Christian witnesses, and of course, through that we are regarded as martyrs, not blood martyrs, but definitely martyrs of the faith. So today we commemorate the earliest example of those who literally gave their lives, and you could read history books as to what those martyrdoms were like, and some of our greatest saints that we know of, Lawrence, for instance, and Sebastian, were brutally martyred, torn apart sometimes. Catherine of Alexandria, torn apart. But they're highlights. There were many whose names we don't know. That's why we celebrate the first holy martyrs of the church today. Because we don't even know the names of people, and this is interesting, they died for you and for me. They never knew us, but they were preserving the faith. They were standing up for what they believe. Now, go outside and do that today. Politically, socially, economically, within the family context, standing up for what you believe. Not what you think, not what you feel, what you believe, honestly believe. That's what the martyr is. You could feel one way or the other about anything, but we don't base our faith on feeling, because we'd be really screwed royally if we did. Like if I didn't like a pastor, I don't like him, so the feeling is not good, so therefore I'm not going to go to church. That's nuts. That's inappropriate. That's basing our faith in Jesus Christ, the rock of our salvation, on a feeling toward a person. You don't like a particular kind of music. I don't like that, so I'm not going to go to that church anymore. Well, I appreciate your taste, but again, we don't gather to church just to be seen. We gather in church to hear the Word of God and to receive the Eucharist. And it's not just a matter of how I feel in church. Sometimes you feel like not so good. Sometimes you feel wonderful. But the feeling is secondary. The heart, the faith, the body and mind working together is so important for the Christian and for the martyr. So those people recently who were martyred in Uganda were there to sing. They were in the choir loft. They were ready. And did they know it was dangerous? Yes, it's a dangerous community. But yet they stood up for what they believed, and they went to church. They wanted to be seen. They wanted to sing. They wanted to pronounce their faith. And for that they died. But we should be doing that every day. Not dying necessarily physically, but standing up for what we believe as Christians. Again, not for what I feel, but what I really believe. And it starts in the creed. You want to know what we believe? Go to the creed. And then go to the scriptures, and then go to the catechism. If you want to really know what we believe. Not what we feel, but what we believe. And the rock of our foundation is a firm belief in Jesus Christ, Father, Son, and Spirit. We are Christians. Let's be martyrs for what we believe.